Hi, we're Quentin Curious Volumes. My name is James. I wanted to come on here and do a little book haul because I went and I got some books at the Friends of the Library book sale here in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I got 6 books. I also coincidentally put together a little pile of 6 books to unhaul, and I'll show you those as well. And then I got a little bit of a mail haul because I got a book in the mail that I wanted to talk to you about. So we'll start with the well, we'll start with the let's start with the unhaul. Let's just get it out of the way. So I am unhauling this copy of Edith Wharton's The Reef. Has a really cool John Singer Sargent picture on the cover, but I have The Reef in a Library of America compendium of uh, of Edith Wharton. So I don't feel like I need a dedicated standalone volume, even if it is a nice Oxford World classic. It's not actually even that nice a copy. So anyway, so see you later. I'm also unhauling this copy of St. Augustine's Confessions in Oxford World Classics because I happened to get another copy of the same edition in better condition a couple months ago. I found it at the Goodwill, and I'm like, well, certainly don't need 2 copies of St. Augustine's Confessions. Haven't read St. Augustine's Confessions lately. I've been getting kind of an urge to an interest in it, just as one of the foundational medieval books, and since the new pope is a member of the society, the Augustinian Society or order or something like that. A group like the Jesuits or the Franciscans, I guess, particularly influenced by the thought and teachings of Augustine. So, or Saint Augustine, I think is how he's usually called. Anyway, so I have 2 copies, and now I'm going to have one. Let's see. Also, here's a book that people have been talking about a bit on BookTube lately. It is How Proust Can Change Your Life by Elaine de Botton. This is sort of a philosophical self-help book influenced by Proust's In Search of Lost Time. I read this last year. It's it's fine, I guess. I don't think I'm going to read it a second time, so I'm going to move it along. Another book that has been a bit on my mind lately that I have read and I don't care for, uh, but the who is it? The Rambling Raconteur, I think, did a video on overrated books by Nobel laureates, and he mentioned Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. I totally agree. The love for this book, the admiration of this book, I don't get it. It just sort of seems to sit there. It seems like it's meant the way the setup, the premise seems like there should be something explosive or at least human in it, but these people just sort of sit there, and no, I don't get it. So there you go. And then there is another Ishiguro book, which maybe I ought not unhaul it, but I'm just not that moved by him. But it's okay. It's Pale View of Hills. I've had this sitting on my shelves for a long time. I have thought, yeah, someday I'll get around. I'll pick that up. I'm probably not. It's been probably 10 years. This has been on my shelf for someday I'm going to read that. And yeah, I only like Ishiguro books that are about embittered butlers on road trips. Otherwise, I think I'm not into it. And here's another one that I've had since grad school days. It's Distinction by Pierre Bourdieu. And Pierre Bourdieu, I think, is someone who, if you take graduate courses in social sciences or humanities, you probably know him by reputation and maybe read a little excerpt of him, but probably not his. So Pierre Bourdieu was a French, I guess he was an anthropologist, maybe a sociologist, but he is known for exploring the concepts of habitus and I think doxology is another one of his terms, but the habitus is something like the way that people of different social classes and uh, uh, certain things kind of coalesce not just around social class, but around identity. So the subtitle is a social critique of the judgment of taste, right? So there's a lot about taste and things like this. So let me, but this. There's a reason that people seem to know about Bourdieu more than they actually read him. He's kind of like the Marcel Proust of social science. He writes these incredibly long, complex sentences. I had one that I was going to read to you. I mean, you can open this almost anywhere and find some very complicated thing. The value placed on casualness and on all forms of distance from self stems from the fact that, in opposition to the anxious tension of the challengers, they manifest both the possession of a large capital, linguistic or other capital, and a freedom with respect to that capital, which is a second order affirmation of power over necessity. Verbal virtuosities, or the gratuitous expensive time or money that is presupposed by material or symbolic appropriation of works of art, or even at the second power, the self-imposed constraints and restrictions which make up the asceticism of the privileged, as Marx said of Seneca, and the refusal of the facile, which is the basis of all pure aesthetics, are so many repetitions of the variant of the master-slave dialectic through which the possessors affirm their possession of their possessions. In so doing, they distance themselves still further from the dispossessed, who not content with being slaves to necessity in all its forms, are suspected of being possessed by the desire for possession, and so potentially possessed by the possessions they do not or do not yet possess. Oh boy, right? So I'm not in grad school anymore. I don't have to read that or try to read that. I think you get what he's saying. Maybe I feel like I have an inkling, but I don't have the patience. So let's go on to the mail haul portion, because I got a book in the mail, and I almost never do this, but I got Against Fascism by David Novak, BookTube's own poet, David Novak, from David Novak Reads Poetry. These are poems that, mostly poems that David has written since the start of the Trump administration, and he mostly read them on his channel in rapid succession. And while, I'll admit, I did not watch every one of them, but I watched a whole bunch of them as they were coming out. And he was persuaded to compile them into a book. It's a pretty lengthy compendium, almost over 300 pages, and not, just one poem per page, of, rhymed and metered verse about the depredations of the current administration. But not all. So here's one that is called "The Cat is Sleeping on My Lap." The cat is sleeping on my lap. The world goes by unchanged. Meanwhile, I think on tons of crap, done by people deranged. The threat exists outside the door. She hasn't ceased to purr. Famine may be our lot in store, but what's that now to her? And then here's the next one. Resist, resist. These are both from late March of this very year. With each directive, the interloping fascist's first objective is to exhaust the citizens and peace of mind accost, to stir up fear and make himself omnipotent appear. It is not true. His overriding plan is to subdue. A sense of bleakness is fostered so as to conceal his weakness. Resist, resist. Do not submit beneath the fascist's fist. So that is. So this is available on Lulu.com, another website. I will leave a link to the site where you can order this book if you're interested in it, or at least check out David Novak's channel because there's a lot of good stuff in there. He's kind of gone back mostly to booktubing now, so talking about the books that he's reading. But he's fascinating whether he's talking about reading or whether he's reading one of his poems. So that is a recommend from me. And then I'll get to my used book haul from the library book sale. I got a couple of mass market paperbacks. One is Raymond Chandler's The Long Goodbye. This book will probably hold up to a rereading. It's a little yellowed, but it seems to be intact. Guess how much I paid for it? Anyway, it's I don't know. I keep accumulating books by Agatha Christie and Raymond Chandler and Dashiell Hammett, thinking I'm gonna get into detective stories some of these days. Never seem to actually do it, but if I get enough of them, I won't have a choice, right? That's how it works, isn't it? Here's another mass market, and this was a big bestseller in its day. Seemed to be ubiquitous in the late '80s, early '90s, and I think this. Well, this is a North Carolina writer who's very well regarded. I've never read him, so it's probably about time that I read Allen Gurganus. This is The Oldest Living Confederate Widow Tells All. This is a big, long novel. It's about 900 pages, right? And I don't really know what it's about. I suspect the title might have be a clue. So there you go. Have you read this? He's I don't know. He writes like a book every 10 or 20 years or so. He's still alive, as far as I know, and it's probably past time for me to read this famous North Carolina author. Here's another author who lived in North Carolina. Look, I'm not that provincial all the time, but you probably know if you watch this channel that I like Randall Jarrell quite a bit. Here is The Lost World, new poems from it's from I think 1966 when he was still alive, I believe. And actually, I don't know when Randall Jarrell died. That he was not very old when it happened. So and it doesn't give dates for him in here. But anyway, so this is from 1966, and I like his poetry quite a bit. Okay, here is W.G. Sebald's The Rings of Saturn. He's a writer that a lot of people on BookTube like. I've never read him. The lady at the checkout, when I put this down, she said, "Oh, Sebald. I've been wanting to read Sebald." I said, "I wanted to read him too. I never find a used copy of any of his stuff." She says, "Oh, wow, yeah, I want to read that too." I said, "Yeah." And she said, "I guess I'll have to take it out of the library." Well, I mean, she's a member of the Friends of the Library. She should probably, you know. Anyway, then I have two books of, I guess, sort of essays, criticism to round it out. I have Edmund Wilson's The Twenties. So Edmund Wilson was a famous literary critic and essayist for much of the 20th century, and this is, I think, compiled from his notebooks and essays in the decade of the 20s, and he put this together in the 70s, if I remember correctly. And then there are Edmund Wilson books on each of the decades in which he was active. So there's a volume called the 30s and the 40s and the 50s, and they all have different portraits of the artist on the cover, becoming increasingly old, and I'll leave it at that. Okay, and then finally I have essays and criticism by John Updike, Sitting in a Boat. This is Hugging the Shore. It's been a long time since I've read any of Updike's fiction. I'm kind of mixed on it. Some of it I like quite a bit, some I'm but his essays I've always liked. I've always found something interesting in them. I won't say I've always liked them, but I've always found them interesting. And a lot of them I have liked. I had a book of his called Museums and Women, I think. And then one called, I think it was Self-Consciousness, maybe. Those were were both had some pretty good stuff in them, and these are kind of more essays on writers. So Bart and let's see, Calvino, uh, Polish Metamorphoses. All right, what's that? Brecht, Jari. What do you got? Bellow, Vonnegut, Muriel Spark, Iris Murdoch. You know, all kinds of great stuff in here. So there you go. There's plenty to keep you busy. I like getting some of these big chunky essay collections that you can sort of leaf through. I also have this Evelyn Waugh one I've had for a while. Just pick that up and just read one late at night, just in between things. It's fun. Anyway, that's what I have. I hope you're having a good day. Thanks for watching. Bye.